Hey there, writer rebels. Even with the most meticulous publishing plans, sometimes the universe throws us a curveball and leaves us cleaning up the mess. Join me today for some tips on how to set yourself up for success after a setback. Hello there, everyone. It's me, Scarlett Kol. I am a young adult author, YouTuber, and storyteller. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about setbacks. However, if you are a subscriber and you are coming back, thank you so much for joining me week after week. And if you are brand new here, thank you so much for joining. If you are not a subscriber, make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and the notification bell to let them know every time I put up new content, which is typically on Thursdays. If you have come here from Wordstock, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. I really look forward to you joining our Rebel family on this little writing journey that we have. And if you have missed the Wordstock video, I did a video on the dreaded middle, writing the dreaded middle of your manuscript. And I still have that available on my channel. That won't be going away. So you can definitely check that out. All right, so today we are going to talk about setbacks. This has been something that's kind of near and dear to my heart right now, just because it is something that I am currently dealing with. If you saw my vlog a little while ago about my computer apocalypse, I had a computer problem and unfortunately I did lose some of my files on a project that I was working on, as well as some edits for an upcoming book that I was supposed to release in July. Unfortunately, because of those deadlines, I was not able to release that in July, and I should be releasing that book in August. So it's kind of been a top of mind subject for me. Also, if you have been following any of the author news out there, you may have seen that a more popular author was recently petitioned by their readers to complete a series. This series has been out, I believe, there's been a 3-year gap or so between the last book and this book in this beloved series that many, many fans enjoy. And some fans are getting very upset that the next book hasn't come out, or the books that they're looking for have not come out. It has been pushed a few times, I believe, and I do not know the specifics as to why this book isn't coming out, but when I was looking into the issue, I was reading a lot of the comments, and there was some really harsh stuff on there. Like, there were people very, very angry with this author that they had not put out this book, and said some particularly mean things to them, how that this was their job and they needed to get on it, and that they were disappointing everybody and they were never going to read any of their books again, and a lot of really, really awful things that I'm not going to repeat online. And honestly, just hearing all this stuff absolutely broke my heart. If you are a writer or an author out there, you will totally understand that sometimes if the words aren't coming, the words aren't coming. And sometimes things in your life take precedence over writing, or you might be working a full-time job on top of being an author. There are so many different things that can delay a book out there. It can be something of your own making. Maybe you've given yourself a deadline that was just a little too much for you to handle. Or maybe there's been a family emergency or a health emergency, or, a global pandemic that's been causing you to stress out and not reach your deadlines for whatever reason. Obviously, we do want to meet our deadlines as much as humanly possible because that's how you run a successful business, but sometimes these happen, and things happen in some of the most successful businesses in the world, and there's nothing they can do about it but pick up the pieces and move on. I'm sure it's extremely frustrating, as I already know this because I'm super frustrated right now trying to get this book out because I know it should have been out already and I just want to get it to my readers, which can actually make the situation a whole lot worse. If you are dealing too much with the stress, it's actually going to slow you down on your productivity and make things a whole lot harder to actually get that book out later. So your stress is just going to get more stress, and it's going to make things a whole lot worse. So hopefully you can take some of these tips that I've had to learn myself and get yourself back on track after a setback, and you'll be able to move forward with your author career, and no harm, no foul. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do, I think, is really mindset. This is some advice that I received from my dad before my wedding, and he basically said that no matter what you do, you will not please everyone. Interestingly enough, after he gave me this advice, we ended up getting into an argument about a decision that he didn't like. So thus, totally proving that point. No matter what you do in your author career, there's probably going to be somebody who does not agree with your decisions. And in terms of a setback, no matter what you do and no matter how you handle the situation, you can handle it as well as you possibly can. There's probably going to be a reader or someone out there who is not going to be impressed with it. The book's not going to come out fast enough. They're not going to be happy with the book when it comes out anyway. They want it in a different format. They don't want to wait. They are not happy with how you announced it. They're not happy with a plethora of different things. That is something you just need to accept, that everything you do, there's going to be someone who doesn't agree with it. And that's okay, because there's nothing you can do about those people. The ones that are online giving all of those nasty comments to that author, there is nothing she can do really to kind of appease them without giving them that book, because that's what they want. But obviously, if she hasn't put the book out, it means she's not ready to do so for whatever reason. So you just kind of need to accept that there's going to be people out there that don't agree with whatever it is that you're going to do, and then that's going to be okay. I will have some tips a little bit later on how to deal with that, but for right now, the first thing you need to accept is no matter what I do, someone isn't going to be happy, so I'm going to do the best that I can for myself first and for the rest of the people that I can. You try to deal with situations the best way possible, but no one is perfect. No one expects you to be perfect, and if they do, in my opinion, go read someone else. Okay, so my second suggestion is basically just take stock. What has happened? How far has this pushed you? And what is your game plan going forward? Obviously, depending on what your setback is, this can widely change. So for me, for instance, I lost some files, I was pushed back. However, I was very close to being finished, and I buckled down to meet my other deadline and got through that. So I knew myself that it was probably going to push me about a month or so. I'm probably going to need to push a little bit to make sure that I'm hitting that deadline within August, but I don't suspect that to be any problem. However, if you are maybe further back in the book, or you've missed a pre-order deadline, or maybe something has come up that you really have no idea how long it's going to take to deal with. Maybe you've been diagnosed with something health related that's totally new and you don't know what that's going to mean for you. It could be an indefinite delay on this book. So what you need to do is, first off, figure out what your delay is. How long do you honestly think it's going to be? And in my opinion, add some buffer time to the end of that. Obviously, you're behind, and like I said, if you're dealing with any stress with the fact that you're behind, regardless of why, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer than you think it is. If you are behind because you set an unreasonable deadline, you already have a bad precedent of setting unreasonable deadlines. So if you give yourself a little bit of buffer time at the end of your plan, that's going to make things flow a whole lot better. Honestly, most people would prefer to wait a couple of weeks for a book than to be disappointed yet again if it was something in terms of you not meeting your deadlines. If it is a family emergency or something like that, you might not have a deadline, and your plan may just be, I'm going to stop and deal with this, and then you will need to do some of my other tips that I'll get to in a second, and then you'll have to get back to it later. The plan may simply be to not have a plan for right now, and that's okay. But if it is something that you can deal with and you know what to deal with, you need to break it down, figure out exactly what you have left to do, how long it's going to take you reasonably, maybe add a little bit of buffer time, and then start moving forward and executing that plan. Similar to this last tip, but something a little bit more directed towards the outcome of this and more holistically, is you also need to assess the damage of your setback. So if you are a relatively unknown author, it's a standalone book, you've been hoping for it to come out, you've got some people waiting, but you don't have a huge fan base, it's not in a ongoing series or something like that, you might not have a lot of impact on this. You release your book a little bit later, your life goes on, and off you go. However, if you are, like I said, a bigger author in an ongoing series, or if you was something where you needed to push a pre-order, if you're on Amazon, you're allowed to push a pre-order once for a month. But if you are in a situation where you need longer than a month or an indefinite break, then breaking that pre-order would put you on pre-order, basically in pre-order jail for a year, and you are unable to do pre-orders on Amazon. How is that going to impact your author career? Do you have other books coming out that's going to impact how your sales are going to go through? For instance, if you have a series, one of the things that a lot of people suggest and works really, really well for sell-through is that you have a pre-order link for your second book set up before you put up your first book, and then your pre-order link for your third book is in your second book, and on and on and on. If you have an ongoing series like that, then having a 1-year hiatus with Amazon is going to be a problem. Sometimes in bigger situations, they will give you a bit of a break if you've never had a problem like this before, But if you are a recurring problematic pre-order problem, they aren't going to give you that break. And depending on who you get a hold of and what the situation is, they may still not grant you that reprieve. So how is that going to impact your career going forward? And how are you going to mitigate that going forward? It's not even necessarily this book. How is it going to impact your future books? How is it going to impact your future author career? Also, even if you don't do pre-orders and you have a relatively set publishing schedule, if this pushes you back, what does it do to those other books? And how are you going to deal with those other books? If you can deal with everything up front, then it's going to be a whole lot simpler to just set that next plan in place instead of constantly trying to deal with the setback for every following book, because you already have set yourself up behind the 8 ball with this one, and now everything's going to be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. So if you know that it's going to have a domino effect, then you're going to want to make a plan of how to deal with that now so that you aren't having to re-deal with it every single time you're supposed to have a book release that isn't ready because that book release 6 months ago got delayed. So now that you know what you need and what you're going to do about it, the next thing you need to do is be honest. Be honest with yourself and be honest with your readers and your fan base and also your contractors. So these can be your cover artists or your editors or anything like that, because you could be delayed with them as well, and it could cause repercussions in terms of them not being able to reschedule you, or maybe you have other covers coming up that you're not going to be ready for and need to reschedule those. So dealing with those contractors is going to be a problem. You might need to deal with that up front. The thing about being honest with your readers is super, super important. So if it's going to be delayed, just let them know it's going to be delayed. Like I mentioned a little bit before, sometimes readers will be okay waiting a couple extra weeks for a book, knowing that it's going to come out, rather than being disappointed again. One of the things with an author career is they start to build a trust level with that author. If you are consistently missing your deadlines and breaking your promises to your readers, they are going to give up on you and move on to somebody else. There's a lot of stuff out there to read, but if every single time they're expecting a book, you don't deliver, they are going to get fed up with you. Things happen, and depending on the situation, obviously people are going to understand. But if you are making a bad habit of this, then it's badly going to impact your career. So the best form of action with this is to make sure that you're honest with them. However, my caveat on this is that you do not have to disclose all of those details. You are entitled to your own life as an author, and they do not own you. So as much as you want to make your readers happy and have full disclosure, you do not need to tell them what you're dealing with unless that's something that you're comfortable with. If you want to and give them a little bit of color as to why things are being delayed, you are absolutely probably welcome to do that, and they would probably love to know what you're dealing with and probably a little bit more empathetic in that situation. However, you do not need to tell them anything. What I'm saying about being honest is being honest of what your plan is going forward. So if, for instance, in my case where my book was going to be late, I let my readers know in my newsletter, in my reader group. I had a blog post or a vlog post on my YouTube channel that my book was not coming out in July anymore. And my intention was for it to come out in August, because I had made that plan and I knew that I could hit an August deadline. If you do not know when it's going to be out, just tell them, I need to take a break from this book indefinitely for whatever reason, or don't give a reason. This is the way it's going to be. I'm very, very sorry, but unfortunately, this is the way that it needs to go. If you have a plan, like I said, and you know when it's going to come out, make sure that you let them know. If they have something to look forward to, then they might be like, okay, I understand, but it's still coming in September, so that's okay. The thing with that is just make sure that when you put in a September deadline, that you actually meet that September deadline and you're not constantly pushing it on them again. If you need to say October, even though you figure you're probably going to be done in September, that's totally fine. They would probably rather hear that it's coming in October and that book showing up for them in October than you telling them September and then pushing to October again. So be honest with your readers, be honest with your newsletter, and let them know that something is happening, that the book is delayed, and if you know how long the book is going to be delayed, or if you know it's going to be delayed indefinitely, let them know that. This is also the time to let them know about any other impacts if you've assessed them during assessing the damage. If you know this is going to push the entire series off, let them know up front. Because this book is going to be delayed until October, I'm going to have to push the series a little bit. So if every other book is going to come out every 2 months. If you ended up finishing those books right on time, I'm sure no one is going to complain if your book gets released early. However, they get a little up in arms if you're releasing your books late. Also, most of the distributors aren't going to have an issue with releasing early. There is no penalty on Amazon for you to finish a pre-order early and release that book a month ahead of time. There is nothing wrong with that. So if you can set everybody up to, these are what the new deadlines are, these are what the new expectations are, they're probably going to understand that a whole lot more than you not telling them about it, them expecting a pre-order, maybe just getting a cancellation email from Amazon and not hearing anything from you. So put it out there, put it on your website, put it on your newsletter, put it in your Facebook groups, put it on your Instagram, wherever you have it, and just let them know that the book is going to be delayed and you're doing the best that you can. And either you will let them know when the new release date is set or the new release date is X. And this is going to impact the rest of my series in these ways. Okay, so now that you've been honest, the other thing that I like to suggest is to stay away from social media if you can. Sometimes you are going to get some pushback, and one of the other things that I have seen a lot of authors go through is that they've delayed a book and then they're all over their social media all the time. And then they have readers that are coming back to them and saying, hey, yeah, like I thought you were working on this book, but I see you on TikTok like all the time. So they can find that frustrating because they feel like you're not working on the book. From the author-writer perspective, sometimes you just need an outlet. Sometimes you just need to be on social media or do something else that isn't working on that book to be able to get you into the creative mode to work on that book. You can't be doing it all the time. However, sometimes people don't necessarily understand that. You also might deal with a little bit of backlash from these readers, and if you do, that's going to stress you out, thus making it even harder for you to write. So depending on how long you're going to be off, if it's going to be something that's indefinite and you've been honest with your readership, then maybe this isn't something that you need to do. But if you've told them that there's a specific deadline and you know that you're trying to hit it, maybe get somebody else to work your social media. Hire a PA for a certain amount of money, or maybe you can just get a friend to drop into your Facebook groups and say, hey, Scarlett's been working on this book, but I'm going to, put a post up or give a little bit of a teaser or something for you just to keep things moving, but that you're not actually in there because you're still working on it. This is going to keep some of the backlash away from you because you're not going to be constantly on there, and you are not going to be able to see it as much. So at least even if you do see it later after the book is out, the damage is already done, the book is already out there. This can be really, really good for your creativity. It isn't something that is absolutely necessary for you to do, but I do find that it definitely helps to take a break away from social media. The other thing you can do is just simply go cold turkey, where you just make an announcement where you're honest with your readers saying that you are working on other things and you are going to take a social media hiatus. And you will check in maybe periodically, but you are not going to be online for a longer period of time because you are trying to finish the book and get on top of the things that you're trying to do. This can be a great route to avoid any other issues because your readers will at least see that, and if they want to say something nasty, they may choose not to because they know that you're not going to be looking for it. And then, like I said, once the book is out, the damage is done, so it doesn't even really matter. And this tip will obviously be dependent on the author and the person. I can't tell anybody to stay off social media. It's just a really good suggestion, but sometimes people need their reader groups for their creativity. Sometimes they want to involve them in the process of what they're doing and moving things forward. And they want to be involved with their readers and letting them know what's going on, and being on social media helps them creatively. So if that's who you are, then that's fantastic. But do be aware that it can have negative repercussions on your new plan as you're trying to get that book out. So if you know that you're going to be up against that, or if you know what kind of personality you have and you put some precautions into place up front, you're probably going to be a lot better off creatively trying to get through this next push for the book because you're keeping away from some of that negativity. My next tip is also optional, but it can be something that can help you personally and can help mend some bridges with some of your readers. And this is to offer readers incentives. However, this is something that I do want to stress is that you don't need to. Just because you are a human being and things happen in your life and you had anticipated something coming out and it's not coming out till later, that's perfectly okay. Readers just need to deal with the fact that sometimes they need to wait. As frustrating as that is, I find it frustrating when I know I'm late and it frustrates me. It might be a situation where nobody out there even cares that my book isn't out yet, but it matters to me, and there could be a few readers that it matters to them. So it really just kind of depends on if this is something that you really, really want to do to, make your readers feel better, make yourself feel better, whatever that situation needs to be. Or if you know you have your other books coming out, maybe you're just going to release it as quickly as you can and then move on to try and get back on track. So obviously incentives aren't something that you need to do because, the reader will eventually get your book. And as much as the readers really connect with authors, it's your book and it's your life and it'll come out when it comes out. So you don't actually owe them anything extra than that book. And to be honest, you don't owe them that book at all. If you ever decided to just quit writing because this isn't for you, yes, you will disappoint people, but the fact of the matter is you are not obligated to write this book. There's no one sitting there at gunpoint making you type the words. If you choose never to release this book, you never release this book. That's completely up to you. But there's definitely a very guilt-driven cycle that can happen if you are a career writer or have been writing for a while, that you feel obligated to write for your fans. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. Authors with ferocious fans are fantastic. They can be some of the absolute best people in your corner. However, it can also be very weighing on you because you have the expectations of so many people when in fact you do not owe them a book. Okay, but let's get back to the tip though. So reader incentives. There's a couple of different things that you could do for this is maybe do your launch a little bit differently for this book than you would have done for other books. One of the other options is to drop the price for newsletter or other subscribers. So you can put it up for a short pre-order, even if you know it's going to be coming out, and say, okay, during the pre-order period, it's going to be $1 off. Maybe some authors can't afford to do that or choose not to do that because they don't want to manipulate their pricing, but you could tell those people that yes, I'm going to offer it cheaper than I normally do on my pre-order just as a reward for having to wait for this book. And then as soon as it releases or after release week, I'm going to put the price back up. Depending on what your pricing strategies are, you might already be doing that. So this might not be something that you normally do. However, if you typically release full price, this is something that is an easy way to reward those people that are following you, because it's those people that are following you that are going to buy your book on pre-order or are more inclined to buy your book on pre-order or when it first releases. So they're going to get the bonus of that lower price. The other things you can do is you can offer actual incentives. Maybe you have stickers or you have fan art that you can do something with, or like commissioned art to do stickers or cards or something that's going to be exclusive to those people who have pre-ordered. You could also do something digital, so then that way you aren't paying for shipping, for bookmarks or whatever. That can be wallpapers, it can be specific pictures. You could have pictures of signatures, so almost like a book plate that you can have electronically that people can use on their phones or have as pictures. You can do various different things out there. Basically check any Etsy store and you can see various different ideas that you can get for digital downloads. Maybe you have a really cool quote from your book that you can make it pretty and make it a printable, and people can print that off and frame it or do whatever they want with it. So, but it would only be exclusive to those people that had pre-ordered. If you have a little extra time right before the book releases, or if you had something maybe sitting in your writer trunk or on your computer, you might be able to give them a little bit of extra something. Maybe it's the first chapter of the next book that nobody else is going to see because it's not in the book itself until that next book releases. Or maybe you started a prequel, or maybe you've got some random short story that nobody's ever seen that you can offer to those people that have pre-ordered, or those people on your newsletter list, or just in your reader group. They don't even necessarily have to pre-order. You can just give it to them as the, you know what? I know this book's going to be late, but I figured I would give you a little extra treat to hold you over while this book is being finished. So these are little things that you can do to just incentivize your readers, let them know that, you know, I understand that I've missed this deadline for whatever reason, but I definitely still care about you and I'm still working towards getting this finished. So this can go a long way to kind of keep some of your readers happy and keep them invested in your book, even though you have missed that deadline and they might be disappointed. Plus, if you're anything like me, I'm a people pleaser, so I tend to worry about what people think. And if you are one of those people, then it can actually work really wonders for you by knowing that you are giving something a little bit extra to those people and kind of absolve some of your own guilt about being late for whatever reason. And my last tip is, no matter what you do, try to make sure you don't put yourself in this situation again. Obviously, there are some things that cannot be avoided. A family emergency, a health emergency. You do not plan for these things. They just sort of happen. But if one of these reasons that you are set back is because of something you have done, because you set a deadline that was unreasonable or something like that, then make sure when you're making your plans going forward that you're including buffer time for your releases to make sure that you're going to hit it, and try not to set unreasonable expectations for yourself. If you cannot release that fast, don't. And I'm not saying that you need to completely rechange your entire publishing structure. Maybe you do, but if you need a few extra weeks, or you should put that extra month on, do it. Like I said, readers would rather know that a book is coming out and it come out when it says it's going to come out or earlier than not coming out when it says it's going to repeatedly release after release after release. So make sure that you are setting realistic deadlines of when you're actually going to get these books finished. And it doesn't actually hurt to include a little bit of buffer time anyway. If you know that you're going to finish by September 1st, awesome. Maybe you're not going to release it until the 15th or the 30th anyway, just in case something else happens. Then you can lock it down in a pre-order or have it sitting as a file on your computer or whatever you need to do. And then when the release date comes up, you just release it and move on. You're already partway into another story, or you've taken a break, or you're editing or whatever, and you get that extra buffer time in there. But if something happens and you need a few extra days, you're not late. So when you're making your publishing plans, make sure that you are building a realistic plan. And secondly, you are building in a little bit of buffer time for those things that you aren't expecting. Even if you know that you can write a book in 6 months like clockwork, and it takes you 3 months to edit, so in 9 months you know full well it's going to be out, then maybe give yourself 10 or 9.5 or whatever it needs to be, just in case something happens. Because unfortunately, best laid plans almost always have a wrench thrown into them. And sometimes you can pick yourself back up, and sometimes you are not going to be able to get there. So this way, it releases the stress on you a little bit. It makes sure that you fulfill your promises to your readers, and is going to make sure that things move a whole lot smoother for you in the long run. Okay, so those are my tips on how to set yourself up for success after a setback. Hopefully they will be valuable to you, and hopefully you won't have any setbacks that is going to really matter. But if you do, these are definitely some ways for you to deal with it. It can be a very stressful time, both for yourself and for your family and those people around you. And hopefully you are never in a situation where something that bad happens that you need to be postponing your books. I want everybody to be healthy and happy and safe. So hopefully this is not something that you're ever going to have to deal with. But if you do have to deal with it, just sit yourself down, be honest with yourself, assess what's really going on, be honest with your readers, and make a good plan going forward. All right, thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like to see more videos from me, make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and the notification bell, and they will let you know every time I release a new video. If you liked this video or any of my videos, make sure you're hitting the thumbs up so YouTube knows that it is something worth watching. Thank you so much, and I will see you all next Thursday with a very special video that I will be putting out, and I might exactly have a little bit of a giveaway as well. So make sure you're joining me next week for that. Thanks, bye.